She laughed at the human soldier chosen to protect her. The royal palace of Xerinth stood high above the clouds, built into the side of a glowing mountain. Its walls sparkled with crystal, and its towers reached into the sky like silver spears. Alien nobles from across the galaxy filled the great hall, their colorful robes shining under the floating lights. And at the center of it all sat Princess Varia, young, proud, and cruel. She wore red royal armor trimmed with gold, and her violet eyes scanned the room with boredom. Her voice was sharp, and her smile was dangerous. "Bring in the human," she said lazily, waving a hand. 2 guards opened the door. A man stepped in, tall but not impressive by alien standards. He wore a simple black and gray uniform, no fancy armor, no glowing weapons, just a calm face and cold eyes. Princess Varia stared for a second, then laughed. "This is a joke, right?" she said, glancing at her father's advisors. "This fragile little Earth man is supposed to be my personal guard." No one answered. The human didn't react. He just stood still, his hands behind his back. "Do you even speak?" she mocked, walking down the stairs. Her boots clicked against the glass floor. "What's your name, Protector?" The man finally spoke. One word. "Kane." Varia raised an eyebrow. "Kane. Is that it? No titles? No house of something?" "No," he said simply. The crowd chuckled. Varia circled around him, looking him up and down like he was an animal at a zoo. "You look like you belong on a farm," she said. "Or maybe in a zoo. Not here. Not guarding me." Kane didn't respond. That annoyed her. "I want to see what Earth training looks like," she said, turning to her guard captain. "Pick one of our elite warriors. Let's have a little demonstration." A large alien stepped forward, wearing heavy red battle armor. His eyes glowed with heat, his 4 arms cracked knuckles in excitement. "This is Rythak," Varia said with a smirk. "He's killed 20 invaders in hand-to-hand combat. Let's see if you last 20 seconds. Kane looked at the captain, then at Varia. He nodded once. The crowd made a circle in the hall. Servants pushed back tables. Excited whispers filled the air. "Begin," Varia said with a grin. Rythak charged like a wild beast, roaring, swinging his thick arms like hammers. Kane didn't move until the last moment. He ducked, spun, and drove a fist straight into Rythak's ribs. The armored warrior stumbled. Gasps filled the room. Rythak growled and attacked again, faster now. Kane moved like water, calm, smooth, deadly. A low kick, an elbow strike, a twist, a slam. Rythak hit the ground hard. His armor cracked. He didn't get back up. Silence. Even Varia's smile faded. Kane stepped back, breathing steady. He didn't look proud. He didn't even look interested. Varia stared at him. This time, no laughter came from her lips. She walked up to him again. This time, her voice was lower. "You were holding back." Kane didn't answer. "You could have killed him." Still silence. The princess felt something new, uncomfortable curiosity. Who was this human? Why did he move like that? And why didn't he react to anything? The Emperor's advisor leaned close and whispered something in Varia's ear. Her eyes widened. "Wait, you were sent by the Human Alliance?" she asked. "You're not just a soldier. You're something else, aren't you?" Kane simply nodded. That night, as the celebration continued, Varia watched him from the balcony. He stood alone, near the outer gates, looking up at the stars like they held answers. She gritted her teeth. She didn't like mysteries. She didn't like being wrong. And this human, this quiet, cold soldier, was both. But something deep inside her whispered that Kane wasn't just her protector. He was the start of something far more dangerous. And she had just laughed at him. He refused to kneel, so she ordered her guards to strip him. The next morning, the twin suns rose over the palace of Xerinth. casting long shadows across the glowing crystal floors. The alien nobles gathered once again in the great hall for the royal oath ceremony, a tradition where every royal bodyguard swore loyalty by kneeling before the princess. Princess Viria stood proudly at the center, her gold-trimmed armor reflecting the morning light. Her long silver braid flowed behind her as she held a ceremonial blade. Behind her stood her royal guard, dressed in red steel, their faces hidden beneath glowing helmets. Everyone was watching. And in the center of the room stood Cain, silent and still, his sharp eyes fixed on the floor ahead. He was dressed the same as yesterday. No armor, no weapons, just a black tactical uniform with Earth's insignia on his chest. A noble elder stepped forward. By law of the Stellar Empire, the personal guard shall kneel before the princess and pledge eternal loyalty to her blood and throne. The elder nodded toward Cain. You may kneel now, human. Cain didn't move. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Viria's smirk returned. She stepped down again, this time slower, her eyes full of fire. Is your leg broken, Cain? She asked mockingly. Or are you just too proud? Still, Cain said nothing. Viria's voice turned sharp. This is a royal command. Kneel. He looked up, just once. His voice was calm, firm, and cold. I kneel to no throne. The room went dead silent. One of the nobles choked on his drink. A few of the guards stepped forward, hands on their weapons. The elder took a shocked step back. Viria's expression twisted, part anger, part confusion, and part something else. She stepped closer, her voice trembling with fury. Do you know what you just said? No one denies the princess of Zirinth. Not even my father's generals. Cain stared at her, unblinking. You asked for a protector, not a pet. Those words hit her harder than any punch. For the first time, someone in the palace wasn't afraid to say the truth to her face. And that made her snap. Guards, she shouted. 10 armored warriors moved instantly, surrounding Cain. Strip him, she ordered. Let everyone see what this protector is hiding. There were gasps. Even the elder stammered. Princess, perhaps this is. Do it, she yelled. The guards approached. Cain didn't resist. He raised his arms slightly, allowing them to unclip the black armor panels. The pieces fell one by one. Chest plate, shoulder guards, tactical belt. But underneath, there was no weakness. Instead, what they found shocked everyone. His body was covered in cybernetic enhancements. Thin silver lines ran across his chest like veins of liquid metal. His left shoulder was entirely synthetic, humming softly with hidden power. A small device blinked on his back, something no alien had ever seen. The guards stepped back, confused and nervous. One of them whispered, "He's not just human. He's a hybrid." The elder's voice trembled. That technology is forbidden in this galaxy. Even the council doesn't have that kind of biotech. Viria's voice dropped. What are you? Cain finally looked up, his face unreadable. I'm Earth's message, he said. We don't kneel. We don't obey. We protect. And we survive. The whole hall stood in silence. Princess Viria stared at him, eyes wide. Her voice was almost a whisper now. So, they sent you to watch me. Cain didn't reply. She took a step back. For the first time in her life, she felt something cold crawl up her spine. She had stripped his armor to humiliate him. But instead, she had exposed a weapon. Not just a man. A weapon. That night, she sat alone in her royal chamber, staring at the moon outside her window. Her hand trembled as she touched her chest. She had always believed humans were beneath her, weak, slow, primitive. But Cain, he had refused to kneel. He had stood like a wall against her rage. And now she couldn't stop thinking about him. Not because she hated him, but because something inside her wanted to know why he was really there. And what he would do next. He followed her into the forest and saved her from her own people. The cold night wind swept across the glowing trees of the Whispering Forest, a forbidden place just outside the capital city of Zerinth. The leaves shimmered under the twin moons, whispering secrets only the wind could hear. Strange creatures howled in the distance, and violet mist drifted low to the ground. No one entered this forest willingly. But Princess Varia was not like others. Her cloak fluttered behind her as she crept deeper into the trees, her boots crunching softly against the glowing moss. She kept checking over her shoulder, glancing back at the palace in the far distance. Her face was pale, her jaw tight. She held a small communicator in her palm, its red light blinking every few seconds. She was meeting someone. But she had no idea that someone else, Kane, was already following her. Far behind, the human soldier moved like a shadow. No sound, no trace. His enhanced vision cut through the fog. His ears picked up even the softest heartbeat. He had watched her leave the palace through a secret tunnel hidden behind the east tower wall. He didn't know where she was going, but something about the way she moved told him she wasn't safe. She thought she was being careful. She didn't know she was walking into a trap. Varia reached a small clearing surrounded by twisted black trees. She stopped and looked around. A figure stepped out of the shadows, tall, armored, face hidden behind a silver mask. "You're late," she said, folding her arms. The masked figure chuckled. "Still arrogant, just like your mother." Varia stiffened. "You said you had information about the Emperor's death." "I do," the figure replied. "But first, let's talk about your position, your future." Suddenly, more shadows moved between the trees. 4 warriors stepped out, their weapons glowing blue in the dark. Something was wrong. Varia took a step back. This wasn't part of the deal. "Oh, but it was," the masked figure said. "The Empire is weak. Your father is dead. And you're the last threat to my claim. All I need now is your death." Before she could scream, 2 warriors lunged at her. But they never reached her. Kane exploded from the darkness like a storm. The first attacker flew backward, his ribs crushed by a single strike. The second swung a plasma blade, but Kane caught his arm and twisted it until it snapped with a sickening crack. Varia gasped, frozen. The masked figure shouted, "Kill him." 3 more charged Kane. He ducked and rolled, grabbing a fallen sword and spinning with deadly precision. Metal clashed. Sparks flew. In seconds, the forest floor was littered with groaning bodies. Kane turned to the masked figure. "You made a mistake," he said calmly. The masked man tried to run, but Kane's cybernetic arm extended like a whip, catching him by the throat and slamming him to the ground. Varia stared at the chaos, her body shaking. She had never seen death this close. Never seen a man move like that. Never imagined that someone would fight for her without being ordered. Kane stood over the masked traitor, pressing a boot to his chest. "Why her?" he demanded. The traitor coughed, his mask cracked. She knows things about the Emperor's will. If she lives, the wrong heir will take the throne." Kane looked at Varia. "Is that true?" She nodded slowly. "There's a message hidden in the royal archive. My father left it for me. Only I can open it." Kane lowered his boot. "Then we're going back." Later that night, inside a hidden cave near the palace walls, Kane built a small fire. Varia sat beside it, her hands still trembling. He handed her a heated drink from his ration kit. She stared at it for a moment, then took it without a word. "You followed me," she finally said, her voice soft. "Why?" "I had a feeling," Kane replied, "that I'd be stupid." He glanced at her. "No, that you'd be in danger." Varia smiled bitterly. "So you protected me again, even after everything." Silence passed between them. Only the crackling of the fire remained. Varia looked at him, her eyes less proud now, more curious. "You could have let me die." "I don't let people die," Kane said, his voice firm. "Even the ones I don't like." Viria raised an eyebrow. You don't like me. He looked straight into her eyes. No, but I understand you. She looked down at her hands. For the first time, the alien princess looked small, not in power, but in pain. My whole life, I was told I was better, stronger, untouchable. But out there, I was just a target. Cain didn't say anything. He just sat quietly, letting her speak. And you, she continued, you're different. You don't care about titles, or fear, or respect. You just do what needs to be done. He nodded. That's what makes us human. She gave a short laugh. Then maybe I wish I was more human. As the fire burned low and the moonlight touched her face, Viria looked at Cain again, really looked. This wasn't a bodyguard. This was a man who had already saved her twice, a man who didn't speak unless necessary, a man who could kill silently but chose mercy. She felt something stir inside her. Not fear, not pride, but something deeper. And for the first time in her life, she didn't want him to leave. He removed her royal armor, and she finally saw herself. The sun had barely risen when the winds of Zerinth grew colder than usual. Inside the hidden cave nestled beneath the mountain palace, Cain stood outside, scanning the sky. His glowing eye implant softly hummed, adjusting its lens. Viria watched him from a corner, her arms wrapped around her knees. She hadn't slept all night. Not because of fear, but because her mind wouldn't stop playing the last few hours over and over. The way Cain had fought, the way he had shielded her body with his own, the way he had spoken without pride or anger. No one in her life had ever treated her like that. Not her advisors, not her royal cousins, not even her own father. He saw her as a person, not a throne. But now her body ached. A long cut across her shoulder had blowed through the inside of her armor. She hadn't dared remove it. Zerinthian armor wasn't just steel. It was reputation. Taking it off would make her feel bare. Cain, she said softly. He turned. Yes. I think I need help. A few minutes later, she stood with her back to him, her breathing shallow. Are you sure? Cain asked quietly, holding a small medical kit. I can't reach the wound, she said, and I can't see it. Then you'll need to take off the armor. Silence. Viria slowly nodded. He stepped closer and with careful hands began unfastening the golden plates on her shoulders. The armor clicked as it came loose, piece by piece falling to the stone floor with metallic clinks. Each sound echoed like a crack in her royal mask. The heavy chest plate came last. Underneath, she wore a tight black suit, now stained with dried blood and dirt. Her back was bruised from the ambush. The cut on her shoulder had turned red and swollen. Cain knelt beside her and opened the medical pack. This will sting, he warned. I'm not afraid, she said, gritting her teeth. He cleaned the wound slowly. Her fingers curled tightly, but she didn't scream. She didn't even flinch. You've done this before, Cain said. She nodded. I fell from a battle glider once. Cracked 2 ribs. My father told me to get up or stay down forever. Cain said nothing. Do you think I'm weak? She asked suddenly. He looked at her, eyes calm. No, I think you were trained to wear armor that was never made for you. She blinked. What does that mean? You're not your father, or your titles. You keep trying to fit into a crown that crushes you. Her voice dropped. Then what am I? He finished wrapping the bandage and stood up. That's for you to find out, but I've seen more strength in you tonight than in most warriors I fought beside. For a long time, Viria didn't speak. She looked down at the floor, where her armor lay, broken, blood-stained, and useless. She reached for a mirror shard near her pack and raised it to her face. What she saw wasn't the perfect royal image. Her silver braid was messy. Her cheek was scratched. Her eyes were puffy. The black suit clung to her body like a second skin, revealing all her scars. Her wounds, her truth. She whispered, "I don't recognize her." Cain walked to the cave entrance and stood in the morning light. "Good," he said. "Now you can start becoming her." That afternoon, they hiked back toward the palace through a hidden mountain trail. The guards would think she'd disappeared. The traitors would think she was dead. But Viraya wasn't coming back as a princess. She was returning as herself. Inside the palace, the royal council was in panic. Rumors of the princess's death had spread like wildfire. One of the traitorous lords, Councillor Dran, had even begun preparing to declare himself the new ruler. But just as he stood to make the announcement, the doors burst open. The nobles gasped. There she was. No armor, no crown, no guards. Only a young woman in black, with a bandaged shoulder and fierce eyes that burned like lightning. And behind her, walking like a silent force of nature, Cain. "Councillor Dran," Viraya said loudly, stepping forward, "I believe you were about to commit treason." The man froze, lips parted. "I suggest you sit down," she continued, "before Earth's ambassador here teaches you what real loyalty looks like." Cain didn't say a word. He didn't need to. One look at him was enough. Dran collapsed into his chair, defeated. Later that night, Viraya sat quietly in her private chamber, gazing at her reflection in a basin of water. No crown, no heavy gold robes, just her, Viraya. She ran her fingers along her shoulder scar and smiled. For the first time in her life, she felt stronger without the armor. And she knew exactly why. It wasn't Cain's protection that gave her power. It was the truth he showed her when he removed everything she thought made her powerful. Now she was becoming something more dangerous than royalty. A woman who truly knew who she was. She tried to command him, but he took the throne instead. Thunder rumbled across the sky as black ships appeared on the horizon. The capital of Zerinth stood on edge. Every citizen, noble, and soldier could feel it. The tension in the air, the whispers in the wind. Something was coming. Something dangerous. Inside the royal chamber, the High Council waited in silence. Golden banners had been lowered to half-height, and armed guards stood around the circular hall. The throne of the empire, an ancient seat carved from star crystal, stood empty. The emperor was gone, and there was no chosen heir. Princess Viraya entered the chamber slowly, but she was not dressed in royal armor. She wore a black suit trimmed in silver, simple and light. Her bandaged shoulder was still healing. Her hair was tied back, and her face was calm but firm. She stopped at the edge of the throne platform. Behind her, Cain stood silently. He wore his human battle gear, upgraded now with Zerinthian tech, his metal arm pulsing with hidden energy. His presence made several counselors uncomfortable, especially those who had once laughed at him. Viraya took a deep breath and turned to the council. "I have returned," she said, "alive and aware." A few members clapped politely. Others remained stone-faced. She looked at them one by one. "You all want to know what I found in the Emperor's archive. Well, I'll tell you." She raised a small crystal cube. The lights dimmed. A hologram shimmered into the air, her father's image, recorded before his death. "If you are seeing this, then I have passed," the Emperor's voice said. "And the throne remains in danger. The power struggles within this council, the corruption, the hunger for control, all of it will destroy our empire." He paused. "That is why I entrust Zerinth's future not to blood, but to strength." Viraya's eyes widened. Even she hadn't heard that part before. Only the one who proves their loyalty, courage, and honor in the fire of truth shall sit on the throne. The hologram ended. Gasps echoed across the room. "What does this mean?" One counselor cried, "No bloodline succession." Another shouted, "It's a trick." Viraya raised her hand. "It means there must be a trial, a final test of worth." An argument broke out among the nobles, but no one noticed Cain step forward until he stood directly beside the throne. "I accept the trial," he said calmly. Silence. Dead silence. Every head turned toward the human soldier. Viria's eyes snapped to him. "Cain, what are you doing?" He met her gaze without blinking. "You said the Empire should be led by someone who sees truth, who protects without pride, who defends even those who don't deserve it." "Yes, but—" He faced the council again. "You wanted a throne. I wanted peace, but I've seen your wars, your lies, your games. The people deserve better." A counselor growled. "You are human. You have no right." Cain's cybernetic eye flickered. "I have the strength. I've fought for your princess. I've bled for your empire. If that's not enough, challenge me." No one spoke. No one moved. Viria stepped down from the platform, her face pale. "You're serious," she whispered. "Yes. You want the throne." Cain shook his head. "No. I want to give your people a choice." The next day, the trial of leadership was held on the steps of Origin, an ancient ground used once every 1,000 years. Thousands gathered. Holograms streamed across planets. The trial had two parts, one of strength and one of truth. In the trial of strength, Cain faced two of the Empire's top warrior champions. He didn't just win, he dominated. Every move was precise. No wasted energy. No unnecessary pain. He fought with purpose, not pride. And when he could have ended a fight with a fatal strike, he chose mercy instead. People noticed. Even Viria watched with awe. But the final trial was unexpected. He was told to give a speech. One chance to speak from the heart, to convince the galaxy. He stepped forward. No crown, no fancy words. Just him. "I'm not one of you," he began. "I come from Earth, a small blue world you once called weak. But we learned to grow stronger not through power, but through pain, through loss, through standing back up." He paused, scanning the crowd. "You've been ruled by fear, by bloodlines, by control. But the future doesn't need a ruler who demands loyalty. It needs someone who earns it." The silence afterward was deeper than before. Then applause. Then cheering. Then chanting. "Cain, Cain, Cain." Later that night, Viria found him standing at the throne. She walked slowly, her steps careful. "So, it's yours now," she said, her voice soft. He looked at the throne, then at her. "No, it's ours." She blinked. "What?" "I don't want to rule alone," Cain said. "You know your people. I know mine. Together, we can build something new." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You really don't know how to act like a ruler, do you?" He smiled. "That's probably why they trust me." She stepped closer, and for the first time, she looked at him not as a soldier, not as a threat, but as an equal. And in that moment, the galaxy changed. Not because a human took the throne, but because he didn't do it for power. He did it to give power back to the people. She stood in front of him, unarmed, then said the unthinkable. The sky above Zerinth was no longer calm. Enemy ships had been spotted on the far edge of the galaxy, ships carrying the mark of the Varn Dominion, a ruthless empire that devoured weaker worlds and left nothing behind. The Dominion had never attacked Zerinth before, but now that the throne had changed hands, now that a human stood at its edge, they saw weakness, or so they thought. The palace trembled with tension. Soldiers rushed through its halls. Generals barked orders. Nobles whispered in fear behind closed doors. The empire was preparing for war. And yet, deep in the heart of the mountain palace, in a quiet hall lined with glowing stones, Princess Viria walked alone. She wore no armor, no royal cloak, not even her ceremonial dagger. Only a simple robe, her silver braid falling down her back. Her heart pounded as she reached the tall metal door guarded by two elite warriors. They saw her coming, hesitated, then stepped aside. Inside stood Cain, facing a large holographic map, surrounded by Earth's military advisors and Zerenthian commanders. The room fell silent as Varia entered. Cain turned to her. For a moment, he didn't recognize her. She looked so different, unarmed, vulnerable, real. She took one step closer. "I need to speak with you," she said. Cain looked at the others. "Leave us." Everyone exited without a word. The door sealed shut behind them. Now, they were alone. She stood before him, heart racing. He waited, but she said nothing. Not yet. She had practiced her words in her head 100 times. But now that she stood before him, her voice didn't come easy. So instead, she did something no one had ever seen her do. She bowed her head. Not as a princess, not as a warrior, but as a woman who had seen the truth. And then she spoke the unthinkable. "Teach me." Cain blinked. "What?" She raised her eyes, steady but soft. "Teach me to be like you. Not the warrior part. I can learn that from anyone. I want to learn how to carry strength the way you do." Cain didn't speak, so she went on. "When you look at people, you don't judge them. When you lead, you don't shout. You fight, but not for yourself. You don't want power, but people give it to you anyway. I've spent my whole life being trained to lead, but I never really learned how to stand without a throne." Cain finally spoke, his voice calm. "You don't need me to teach you that." "Yes, I do," she whispered, "because I can feel the war coming, and I can't face it as the spoiled princess I was. I want to be something more." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we start now." The days that followed were unlike anything Varia had known. She trained beside Cain in the old fighter halls, where dust covered broken blades and forgotten armor. There were no servants, no royal baths, no soft food or silk beds. Just sweat, pain, and silence. Cain never yelled. He never told her she was wrong. But he pushed her, every fall, every mistake, every lesson. She kept getting back up. Her hands grew calloused. Her shoulders grew strong. Her mind grew sharper. They trained in combat, strategy, languages, even philosophy. Cain shared Earth's ancient tactics, how small groups had defeated larger armies, how humans had survived extinction-level events, how heart had often mattered more than strength. But the most important thing he taught her was how to listen. One day, as they sat by the balcony overlooking the training grounds, Varia asked, "Why are you helping me?" Cain stared into the distance. "Because I know what it's like to wear the wrong mask, and I've seen what happens when people with power never question themselves." She looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time. Not just the soldier, not the symbol, not the man who had refused to kneel, but the man who had refused to become like everyone else. That night, while others slept, Varia stood outside Cain's quarters. She hesitated before knocking. When he opened the door, she didn't speak. She just stepped inside. No armor, no titles, just her. "I'm not here to give orders," she said softly. "I'm here because I finally know who I want to be, and I want you to see that version of me." Cain closed the door. They didn't speak much after that. They didn't need to. Two warriors, two scars, one choice, and in that quiet, flickering moment beneath the stars, without a crown or a title or a sword between them, she became someone more. Not a girl made of gold and fire, but a woman made of truth and steel. She chose the human and burned her crown. The sky was burning. Dozens of Varn Dominion warships broke through the outer defense grid, raining fire down on Zerent's moons. The once beautiful sky of twin suns now glowed orange with flame and ash. From the tall palace tower, Princess Varia, or what remained of the girl once called a princess, watched the chaos unfold with steady eyes. Her royal cloak no longer rested on her shoulders. The golden crown that had been polished every morning by her handmaidens now sat in a quiet corner of her chamber, untouched, She wasn't thinking like a royal anymore. She was thinking like a commander, a warrior, and deep down, a woman who had already made her choice. In the war room, the galaxy's last hope stood waiting. Kane looked over a holographic map showing the enemy fleet's advance. Around him stood Earth officers, Xirinth generals, alien diplomats from allied moons, and even a few former nobles who had once called him primitive. Now, they stood in silence as he gave orders. Their main fleet is using old Dominion formations, Kane explained, pointing. But they don't expect ground resistance. They'll try to shatter morale in the capital. We'll meet them before they land. One general asked, "And who will lead the front charge?" Kane's answer was simple. "I will." The room shifted nervously. "Sir," another commander said, "if you fall." "I won't," Kane said. An hour before battle, Virea walked into the armory. Kane was there, loading his pulse rifle and adjusting his armor. She stood silently for a moment, watching him. "I heard you're leading the front lines," she said. He glanced at her, smirking faintly. "I thought you'd try to stop me. I came to join you." He looked at her. She was dressed in black combat armor with silver markings. The old royal seal was gone, replaced by a patch of Earth and Xirinth flags merged together. No title, just purpose. She stepped closer and held something out in her palm. The golden crown. Kane frowned. "You're bringing that?" "No," she said softly. "I'm burning it." They walked together to the royal flame, a place in the center of the palace courtyard where past rulers had burned enemy flags in victory. But now it held something else. A choice. Virea stood at the edge of the fire. She held the crown in both hands. Her reflection shimmered in its polished surface. She had worn it for so many years. It had shaped her, burdened her, crushed her. And now, she was done with it. With a breath, she tossed it into the flame. The gold hissed, melted, vanished. Gasps echoed around the courtyard as dozens of nobles, soldiers, and civilians watched in shock. One of the older counselors whispered, "She burned the crown." And Kane, standing at her side, said only one thing. "She just became more powerful than any ruler you've ever known." The Battle of Xirinth began just before dawn. The Dominion ships landed outside the capital. Giant machines rolled across the plains. Black armored soldiers swarmed in every direction. But what they met was not a frightened city. It was a wall of fury. Kane led the charge, a blur of fire and steel, fighting not for conquest, but for unity. He fought beside humans, aliens, former enemies, and broken allies who now stood shoulder to shoulder. And beside him, Virea fought like the stars were watching. Her blade danced like lightning. Her commands were sharp. Her people followed her without hesitation, not because of her bloodline, but because she had blood for them. In the final hours of battle, the Dominion's command ship hovered over the palace, preparing to destroy it. Kane and Virea fought their way aboard in a small shuttle, battling through enemy corridors together. Side by side, strike for strike. When they reached the control chamber, they faced the last commander of the Dominion. A beast of a man, 7 feet tall, with red glowing armor and claws made from star metal. "You are nothing," he growled. "Just a human. Just a broken girl." Kane smiled. "Then you haven't been paying attention." And Virea stepped forward. "You're not fighting a princess today," she said. "You're facing the last woman you'll ever see." She struck first, and together, they'd brought him down. The war ended. The Dominion retreated. Xirinth survived. But there was no royal parade, no golden celebration. Instead, the people gathered at the old throne chamber, waiting to see what would happen next. Kane stood at the base of the steps, the throne glowing behind him. Everyone expected him to sit, but he didn't. He looked out at the crowd. "I won't rule you," he said. "I didn't fight for that. But if you want a future that's fair, that's built on truth, not titles, Then follow someone who earned your trust. He stepped aside. Viria walked forward. But she didn't sit either. She raised a new banner, a symbol of unity between worlds. I don't want to rule above you, she said. I want to rise with you. And the crowd erupted, not in worship, but in hope. That night, Cain and Viria stood on the palace balcony, watching the stars return to peace. You could have taken the throne, she said quietly. So could you, he replied. She smiled. Then maybe we both got what we wanted. He looked at her. And what's that? She leaned her head on his shoulder. A galaxy that finally knows the meaning of real strength.